So good afternoon and welcome to ARMA's EPR webinar series. This one is the first one of 2024. My name is Alana Yim, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Canadian Strategy Group. It is my pleasure to serve as facilitator and moderator for ARMA's EPR webinar series, and I would like to start us off with a land acknowledgement. ARMA works with Albertans from all areas of our province and acknowledges the Indigenous peoples who lived among and traveled through the land in the area currently known as Alberta. The relationship that peoples of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, Alberta's Métis and Inuit people, have with the land is founded on a deep respect for the environment. The connection forms the foundation of our responsibility and vision of inspiring a future without waste. Today's webinar will have a bit of a different flow from prior ones for those that have attended all of them so far. It's an opportunity for ARMA's first 3 registered pros to introduce themselves and talk about what they do within EPR in Alberta. Each pro will have 15 minutes to deliver a presentation that they've prepared, and certainly welcome questions in the Q&A function that the attendees can see in your Zoom and can submit through. Our presenters will field the questions as they see them coming in within the allotted time. And if they do not get to your question in time, not a worry, as we're capturing and they're capturing the questions as well. We've also built in some extra time at the very end for general Q&As that the EPR team will respond to as we see them. But as mentioned, if your question isn't addressed, we will certainly ensure that they're followed up. And for those who may be new to ARMA's webinar series, our ARMA EPR team members with us today are Ed Guggenheimer, CEO of ARMA, Victor Dong, Director of EPR Operations and Change Optimization, Kim Tightrope, Manager of Compliance, Annie Lam, Change Lead, and then with us we have a couple of subject matter experts, Peter Hargreave, ARMA's consultant at Policy Integrity, and Nahani Falanz, ARMA's legal consultant. The order of our presentations from our pros will be call to recycle, product care, and then circular materials. You will also notice that your audio has been turned off as we're asking everyone to submit your questions through the Q&A function. And please note that this session is being recorded and will be archived onto the ARMA website for later viewing. With that said, I will turn it over to Ed before our first presenters call to recycle. Over to you, Ed.
Well, thanks for that, Alana. I really appreciate it. Happy New Year to everyone who's joined us. Yes, I really appreciate everyone coming to our lunch and learn. So that's what I seem to call them. Karina, it's no shock that you actually got the first question in before the webinar even started. So kudos for you. You're always here for us and always asking the right questions. So we can go to the next slide, please. So what we'd like to do today is, basically give you an idea. There's been a lot of communities that have registered over the past 3 months. There's been a lot of work happening. People have been educating themselves. And, there's certain aspects of everything that's happening during this stand-up of EPR in the province where, we as oversight body can't really answer all the questions that are coming forth because they're really not our questions to ask. And so when Alana suggests that, hey, we're going to be talking to pros, registered pros with the system, it gives everyone predominantly on this forum the ability to ask some questions and actually hear from those pros. And so I think it's important to go through that. We have 3 pros with us today. And first on the docket will be called Recycle. I think Jason Brown, getting to know him, he's almost like a friend, if you want to call it that, because we see each other so often. He's the Director of Program and Project Management at Call to Recycle. We also have Product Care here. I think Manny Chung is going to be joining us. He's the Vice President of Operations. Both those pros dabble in the HSP world. And of course, we have Circular Materials, which many of you have already met. I think John Enring is going to be talking to you and giving you a little bit of background about his organization. He's the managing director here in Alberta. So again, the session flow and format, Alana sort of alluded to it. Each pro is going to be given about 15 minutes to provide you with some information, give you a presentation. They also have that 15 minutes to answer some of the questions that you may have. Please feel free that you make sure that you ask those questions when they come up, because this is a great opportunity to have those conversations. General questions, again, at the end of this webinar, there'll be an open format where general questions can come through, and we'll be able to be there to help facilitate as well. So we also wanted to tell you a little bit about ARMA hosted community workshops. I know we've had a few questions already this week. So we're, as an organization, exploring some ideas on how we can support communities that have now registered. So you've registered, now what? And the general theme would be, changing considerations from navigation to actually preparing for a transition and conversations with pros, these pros that you're going to be talking to at least today. The format will probably be some form of virtual workshop, and we'll be sharing additional information in coming weeks on how that's going to flow. So stay tuned for that. I think that the more people that come to these webinars, the better equipped we are, especially when this is new for communities in Alberta. So with that, maybe we'll call to Recycle to see if they've got some information that they can provide us today.
Absolutely. Thanks you so much, Ed. So I'm Jason Brown. I'm the Director of Program and Project Management at Call to Recycle Canada. We are the Consumer Battery Pro under the HSP category. And also joining me today is our VP of Account Management, Joe Chung. Joe, if you happen to see a question you can answer, jump in at any time. Otherwise, we'll answer most of the questions at the end of the presentation. Just starting off here, I see that someone asked a question about when does the collection system officially begin? That date is April 1st, 2025. Okay, jumping into the next slide here. Thank you. So this is a brief overview of Call to Recycle. Call to Recycle is a Canadian not-for-profit battery producer responsibility organization, and we operate on a national scope. We have approved battery programs in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Quebec, PEI, and we're also a registered pro in Ontario. We do actually have a voluntary program in Alberta already, and we've been operating in Alberta since 1997. We currently have approximately 400 collection sites in Alberta, primarily through return to retail locations with retail partners such as Home Depot, Canadian Tire, Rexall, Staples, Best Buy, and many others. On a national scale, we have a collection network of approximately 10,000 sites, and we firmly believe that convenience is key. And as you know, EPR requires producers, so the manufacturers, the distributors, and retailers of designated products to take responsibility for the life cycle of their products, including the collection and recycling of the products. We have proven national and provincial public education campaigns, and we are going to be driving home the message of the importance of diverting batteries away from landfills. And I'm very happy to say that Call to Recycle has diverted over 40 million kilograms of consumer batteries from Canadian landfills since 1997. If you can jump to the next slide, please. Great. So a quick national overview of Call to Recycle. As I mentioned, we operate programs, regulated programs in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and PEI. And in all other provinces and territories, we have voluntary programs. We're very excited and looking forward to the official launch of Alberta's regulated program as well. Next slide, please. So a quick look at our accepted program materials. I know I see a question about which specific accepted materials will be available. So our accepted program materials include standalone and replacement household batteries, 5 kilograms or less. On the rechargeable side, we accept nickel metal hydride, nickel zinc, lithium ion, and nickel cadmium. I should make a note that SSLAs, or small sealed lead acid batteries, are not currently regulated in Alberta. On the single use or primary side, We accept alkaline, silver oxide, zinc air, zinc carbon, and lithium primary. Next slide, please. So a quick look at our battery collection receptacles. So our main program is our box program. So we can ship our boxes to you. Our boxes are nested, so it's essentially 2 boxes in one. They're very easy to set up. You have a header and flaps that fold over. And all of our boxes have a fire retardant lining for safety, and they also contain sealable bags. So it is best practice to put lithium chemistries and any 12-volt or higher batteries in these sealable bags for optimum safety. The batteries are simply placed in the box. And if you can jump to the next slide. So after the box has either reached max capacity, which is approximately 25 kilograms, or 1 year of accumulation has passed, they're very easy to prepare for shipment. The header folds in, the side flaps fold in, you use adhesive, and the boxes have prepaid, pre-addressed return shipping labels, making it very easy to ship out. And I should say that this is sort of a smaller volume solution. We also have a bulk box program where we can provide our boxes on a pallet. And once that is finished, once all boxes of the pallet are finished, shrink wrap and get ready for shipment. We also provide service for any drum collections you happen to have as well. So we do have the wide array of options. Next slide, please. So looking at next steps and our plan for Alberta, on the collection side, our collection network will consist of private commercial partners, municipal partners, our return to retail locations, and any additional business development along the way. So I want to highlight our partnerships with communities. We would be more than happy to partner with most community locations, and that includes city halls, libraries, rec centers, recycling centers, fire halls. Honestly, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to extend our collection network where it makes sense for your community. Jumping into our marketing and PR plan, we have traditional campaigns, which include newsprint, radio, TV, and we're more than happy to advertise in your municipal publications as well. We also have the array of digital campaigns. So we use Google AdSense, social media, things like banners on the websites of our partner businesses, a wider range of solutions. And I really want to focus on community partnerships as well. We are more than happy to customize events in partnership with your community. An example of a type of event that we run in some communities is our Earth Rangers partnership. And so essentially Earth Rangers comes into schools and both educates and entertains children on battery recycling and really instilling battery recycling within families and also bringing back batteries at the same time. We do live radio events. We've done bus wraps. And another main component that we have is our home collection cubes. If you look at the right side of the slide here, you'll see the cube there. So essentially, we can distribute these to communities that are interested, and the communities can provide these to residents, and we can also provide them at individual events as well. And essentially, the household will take the collection cube, and they can put their small batteries inside, keep them safe, and then the outside of the box basically has instructions on how to recycle. So nice and straightforward. It really incentivizes and encourages battery recycling. I should also focus on the fact that we really do believe in innovation. One of our main innovations recently has been our smart containers. If you look to the right side of the slide here, you'll see the cylinder. That's our smart container. Thank you. So our smart containers are essentially innovative battery collection units that improve safety and customer experience. They have automatic fill level sensors, automatic temperature sensors, and they also have a SIM card inside, which allows for remote monitoring, which essentially lets us schedule pickups based on fill level. So we have a wide variety of collection offerings, and we really want to instill the fact that we want to have an active partnership with communities and really customize to your community. If you just want to go to the next slide here. So that's a brief overview of Call to Recycle, both on a national scope and our plan for Alberta. You'll see my email at the bottom of the slide here, jbrown@calltorecycle.ca. Please do contact me with any questions that you happen to have, or just to get the ball rolling to start with your community. We're more than happy to speak to you. So please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. As mentioned, you're free to scan through your Q&As and address them as they go on, and I'll give you I'll let you know when you've got a minute left in your 15.
Fantastic. Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation here, I know one person asked about the official launch, and again, that is April 1st, 2025. Just looking through the questions. We will provide more lists of our specific materials for your quick reference as well. They are the materials that I provided in the slide, and a reminder that this is loose, separate batteries. ARMA has their own electronics program that includes embedded batteries, just to keep that separate. And I'm more than happy to share slides with attendees. So thank you for asking. More than happy to share this. Currently, EV and automotive batteries are not regulated in Alberta, but they're just as a quick measure here, electric vehicles will run on lithium-based batteries, large batteries, automotive batteries, car batteries. They're the standard lead-acid battery, also not regulated under the program. Yeah, and so those are all the questions I see here at the moment, but again, feel free to reach out to me at jbrown@calltorecycle.ca, and I'm more than happy to answer any other questions that pop up throughout the duration of this presentation.
Thank you, Jason. I will turn it over to our next presenter.
Thank you, Alana. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manny Chung. I'm the Vice President at Product Care Association of Canada. On this meeting, we also have Brian Bastian, President and CEO with Product Care. I want to start off with thanking the team at ARMA for inviting us to present on today's webinar, and also a brief land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of many First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit people in Alberta, and we're grateful to work and live upon the territories together. With that, I will ask if we can jump to the next slide, please. So today's presentation, I'm hoping to give you, share some information about who Product Care is, our experience in developing, implementing, and managing extended producer programs, our role within the Alberta HSP EPR framework, details of the HST, some details about the HSP program, and as noted before, opportunities for a Q&A as well. Next slide, please. So a bit about Product Care. We were established in 1994, federally incorporated, not-for-profit, industry-led stewardship organization. We are a as you've heard, producer responsibility organization, and our mandate is supporting obligated producers in meeting their obligations under extended producer responsibility regulations. We're comprised of over 500 members who are the obligated producers. These include manufacturers, retailers, distributors of regulated products in the various jurisdictions that we operate. We are governed by an industry board of directors representing product sectors. We'll get a little bit about that later in another slide as to what product sectors mean. And we're focused on delivering compliant, effective, efficient programs, at the same time protecting the environment, and we operate across Canada and in some states in the US as well. Next slide, please. So 2024 is a big year for Product Care Association as we celebrate 30 years of EPR leadership. For Product Care, it all started in 1994 in British Columbia with the development of paint program in response to the first EPR regulation in North America. So we've had a long history, successful history of operating programs starting in British Columbia. And with the next slide, I'll be able to provide you with a little more perspective and illustration. Much like you saw with the Call to Recycle presentation, we're national. We're across the board, coast to coast. We operate over 20 different EPR programs. So as you see in the top left-hand corner, the paint categories, the categories of products that we manage include paint, which we have 8 programs, HHW and HSP, which we have 4, Alberta soon to be our 5th. Lighting products, we have 6 of those programs, and smoke alarm, carbon monoxide alarms, along with mercury thermostats in the US. So as you can see, various provinces, we have different programs in various provinces as we respond to the regulations on behalf of producers. And we also provide some management services to other EPR programs such as small appliances, outdoor electrical power equipment, and mattresses. You can see the variety of experience that we've had across the jurisdictions, not only jurisdictional wise, but also product category wise. Next slide, please. So the role of a producer responsibility organization, or PRO, as previously mentioned, Product Care is a not-for-profit PRO, and we are registered with ARMA as a HSP Pro, excluding batteries. As Jason had mentioned, Call to Recycle is covering batteries, and we won't cover batteries. As a pro for Alberta HSP and on behalf of obligated producers under the Alberta's Extended Producer Responsibility Regulation, we're responsible for a number of different aspects. Compliance with the regulation, compliance with ARMA's bylaws and policies and procedures, developing and establishing a common collection system for HSP, working with ARMA registered HSP communities, the transportation and management of collected HSP materials from the collection network and events, and then taking those products and managing those products, whether that be recycling, treatment, and or responsible disposal, as some products cannot be recycled under HSP, and a component of the promotion and education of HSP program. And we'll be working with communities on that as well. And last but not least, a responsibility of complying with the regulatory reporting requirements. For HSP, we believe that the communities are an integral part of the success of a program and a very important partner for us. And so we look forward to working with the communities, communicating and outreach with communities, and working together to create a successful program for Alberta. Next slide, please. So a bit more about the specifics about the Alberta HSP program. The products that are captured under the regulation in Alberta are corrosive products, flammable products, domestic pesticides. It's key to note the word domestic. So it doesn't include all pesticides that you might see, especially in Alberta. You might have agricultural pesticide, things like that, which are dealt with through Clean Farms program, but not the HSP program. And then there's toxic products. In addition to those actual products, their containers are also be captured under the program. Under the program, there are size restrictions on the containers. And so the size restriction is 10 liters or 10 kg or less for solids and liquids of the previous categories that I've mentioned. And then 680 grams or less for pressurized or gaseous products of the obligated product categories. There are a few exemptions or exceptions to or exempted products in the regulation. I won't go into much detail into that there. If people are interested, they can take a look at the regulation as to what products are excluded or exempt from it. Of note that all these product categories do include solids or liquids or gaseous products in the product categories that have been mentioned. How do we identify these products? The regulation really focuses on the hazardous warning symbols that are on the container labels. And these symbols are defined under the federal regulation of consumer chemical and containers regulation. So it's a lot easier. You don't have to go into technical expertise. If you pick up the container, you see these labels that are shown and are from the consumer chemical containers regulation. That will help you define whether a product is included in the program or not. Next slide, please. So I know that many communities already operate HHW programs or collection programs. Alberta's had a very successful historic HHW system in place. It's important to note that there are some key differences for the communities between what traditionally or current HHW program versus the HSP program. The first distinction to be recognized is that HSP does not equal or is not the same as HHW in terms of scope of products that are included in the program. HSP is only a subset of products that are collected in my understanding of the existing or historic HHW program. So that's a key distinction that needs to be recognized. Also to note that, as I mentioned before, that the batteries are not included in ProductCare's HSP system. They are included in called Recycles program for HSP. The regulation also notes that paint is not included. Traditionally, in other jurisdictions, when one references an HHW program or HSP program, it typically includes paint, but the regulations in Alberta specifics exclude paint because it's already managed by ARMA under their stewardship programs. So with these differences, this means there are some key considerations that communities need to consider. Things such as, do you wish to continue to collect the full scope of HHW products, which you are currently doing? Or are you looking only to collect HSP products? A practical consideration after that decision is if you choose to collect both, traditional HHW and HSP products at your collection sites or events, do you have the space? Are you going to be separating, having two containers, one for flammable HSP, one for non-HSP flammable HHW products? Or is there a way to commingle those products and address it in a different way? So those are some of the considerations that community needs to think about, and we're happy to work with communities and talk with communities to walk through that process. A key component of that is to engage your service providers and get them involved as well, because I know that communities already have existing contracts with service providers, etc. So we'll have to get into those discussions at some point. Next slide, please. So a high level in terms of what are the next steps with Product Care's HSP program with as it relates to communities. Obviously, you've heard before, communities need to register with ARMA. As I mentioned in the previous slide, start thinking about the determination, whether you're going to collect HSP only or HSP plus non-HSP, which is your equivalent of your current HHW program. As noted, review with your service provider contract. You want to take a look at your contract, see if there's flexibility in making changes for the upcoming HSP program. Another key area that is very important is the service provider engagement. We know, the service providers for HSP are DBS Environmental, Clean Harbors, Noralta, and there may be more. So it's important for you to talk to the service providers and engage them. You need to inform them that they have to register as a processing facility with ARMA. And then we have been in discussions with the aforementioned service providers, but if there are other service providers that we haven't mentioned, please have your service provider contact us, as this is new for all of us. And so it's very important for us to be all on the same page and have a common understanding and provide a roadmap in terms of how we can work together. We view communities and service providers and ourselves as the key integral pieces of making a successful program. So we need to have that engagement with all three sides. And then the other key components are we're asking for communities to pre-register with Product Care to provide us some information about your current HHW program, who you are, and that information. We're encouraging communities to reach out to us and start discussions about your existing program or your plans to get involved and participate with the HSP program. We will require collection services agreements with communities for both collection events and also for permanent collection sites. So that work is all being currently worked upon by us, and we'll be sharing that with registered communities as soon as we get those to a state where we could share. So the key contact information for you to take away is our email address, which is noted there, alberta@productcare.org. So that is the key contact point to get connections started and relationships and discussions happening. So next slide, please. I see I've got a warning, time warning. So when I mentioned about pre-registration, if you go to our website and the link is there below, and look up Alberta and look at Community Information tab, there's a link there for pre-registration form. That's where you can start filling out the information and getting your information to us. That's a critical piece besides registering with ARMA as the starting point to kick off communications and discussions with us. Next slide, please. And I think I've made the time cut in terms of Q&As. Again, the key contact information is alberta@productcare.org. We want to thank everyone for participating in this webinar, and there's my personal contact information if it's needed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Manny. I can see that your team is also continuing to answer questions in the Q&A box. So a reminder to everyone that we're capturing all the questions and the answers as well. So just keep answering them, and the team's going to just keep answering them in the Q&A box. Next up is circular materials. Over to you.
Thank you, Alana. So my name is John Inrig. I'm the Managing Director for Alberta with Circular Materials. With me today is Jennifer James, our Senior Director of Marketing and Communications, and Bob Nichols, our Community Transition Manager for Alberta. So Jen and Bob, as Alana mentioned, will be capturing some questions for us as well. I will go through this as quickly as I can, leave some questions at the end. I think I've had about 4 coffees today, so I think we're ready to go bust through this. Next slide, please. So a little bit about us. We are a national not-for-profit created and governed by producers. So our role is to work with communities, support producers in meeting their obligations under the EPR regulations. And this is specific to PPP. So those familiar with blue box or blue bags in other jurisdictions, this really includes paper products such as newspapers, packaging, cardboard, printed paper, magazines, plastics, the rigid and flexible, and then metal and glass. 3 key areas that we focus on really is to utilize our innovation, increase performance and efficiencies, and to deliver on our sustainability and environmental outcomes. Next slide, please. So this is our founders. This is really just to show who we started with, just to provide a little bit of visibility on some of the largest producers that we work with in Canada as well. You may recognize a few of those names. And in the essence of time, we'll keep moving. So we are circular materials. So the name kind of says a little bit of what we're trying to do, which is all about collecting materials, recycling, and then returning those materials back to producers so that they can be used again and again. And really, it's about the closed loop system, which is our goal. You've heard a little bit of that for the whole plan of EPR, but that's really the closed loop system that we're working towards. Next slide. So as mentioned, we are national. We're currently working in Ontario, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and Nova Scotia, implementing EPR as we speak. And we are entering in some key dates, obviously, and timelines with Alberta, which is my sole focus. And I'll touch on some additional timelines and dates as well. But you can also mention you can see who we're working with in consultation, which is Newfoundland and Yukon, and just some of our partnerships as well across Canada. Next slide. We'll skip that one a little bit. Our presence in Alberta. So a ton of experience on our team. I'm not going to mention each and one of these bullet points, but what I want to highlight is, we utilize the systems and processes that we know work very well. At the same time, we're working collaboratively with community and stakeholders to be transparent, to learn about the specifics for Alberta and the impact in the communities. We have a great P&E team, and that's promotion and education. I'm not just saying that because Jen is on the call with us. If you think about it in other ways, we call it marketing or comms, and they're going to also connect with you directly just to find the most effective way to engage and educate residents across the province in advance of the launch. In the next slide. Timeline. So we are working towards our April 1st deadline as we speak to submit our verification to ARMA. And that's where we've already started meeting with registered communities. We'll continue to learn, and those discussions really help us in creating that plan as well in collaboration with ARMA and the plan for Alberta. So we're building towards that. The other key dates in the last 2 on the bullet points, building towards obviously April 1st. You've heard that date a few times of next year. That's for the launch with those with existing services in place, and October 1st of 2026 for those communities that did not have existing services as of November 30th, 2022. Next slide. So options, just to kind of highlight 2 specifics, there's communities that do not register. They would then maintain the physical and financial responsibility for PPP materials, and then the funding would be provided for operations or P&E. I'll touch on the next piece in 2 different slides coming up just to go to a bit more granular. So the next slide. The next 2 slides are really for registered communities, and there's 2 options in essence. The first is that we would offer the contract directly with the community, and then the community would continue to provide collection service. So we would then also work on a P&E plan together. I mentioned earlier promotion education, and there is a potential to contract the community on post-collection services as well, if applicable, but that would be in a separate agreement. And obviously, when we have these conversations with the communities, we'll go into those specifics that impact each individual community and what the options are. The next slide is the second option within those 2 pieces. So this is where Circular Materials, as the pro, we would manage the collection services for PPP overall. We would then contract haulers directly to manage the curbside and the depot collection. And we would do this through third-party contracts. We would also lead on the P&E side and still obviously in collaboration with the community. And you hear collaboration a few times here. So I'm running through it, but want to make sure we have some time. And then next slide, please. So, obviously we're in a webinar as we speak. We'll continue to have discovery meetings with each registered community, and that's operational and P&E related. We also have some focus groups. So this is all about for us to learn. We know Alberta is different. We've learned a lot about Ontario and BC programs, but Alberta is very unique, and we want to make sure that we're recognizing that. So those discovery meetings that we're having now, and we're going to continue to have up until the verification and throughout the process up into the launch, are really important. So we're going to ask for information, validate some information that you've already shared in the registration with ARMA. It really is just to understand the current needs of the community and how we can build a plan that makes sense. The next slide. So I think I mentioned collaboration about 6 times, but that's our focus. And there's 3 key pieces that I want to highlight, or sorry, 4 key pieces I should mention. And it's to limit the impact on residents on the transition. Anytime change is tough. So we want to minimize that impact as the transition occurs, as we roll up to EPR. We want to have a consistent and expanded material list across the province for PPP. And as we go through these exploratory meetings with communities, we're pulling information, and obviously what you've already sent to ARMA registration is helpful. Where we can, we want to leverage the existing infrastructure in the community. And then circularity. And this is where, again, materials, we're trying to make sure that they are getting reused. And the next one, so I've gone quicker than I thought I'd go. I think, Bob, I was trying to get into 15. I went through pretty quick. If you haven't joined our municipal working groups, please register and join us. Our next one is January 17th, so coming up next week. If you do have questions, or if you've registered by December 31st and haven't heard from us yet, please reach out directly. We want to make sure that we're connecting with each community that's registered. There is a few gaps just on the commissions, and we're working through those pieces, but we will reach out as well. Our email address is highlighted here. So aboperations@circularmaterials.ca is our contact information for those that want to reach out. And I think we've got some questions that have come up. Bob, I'm not sure if you've got a few you want to highlight. I will open it right back up. So Bob, do you want to?
Yeah, John, there's a couple that have come in. Some may be also to the other pros, but there's a few that I think apply to us that I'll just read them, these ones out, let you answer them. I'm typing in some answers as well. But the one that has been asked is, when will the lists of specific accepted materials be circulated to registered communities?
Yeah, it's a good question on the timing. We've got ARMA here, but there is a few things that we're working through just to finalize those lists. I couldn't give you a date offhand, but that definitely we'll make sure that we follow up with that, and that would be in collaboration with ARMA. That gets into the verification plan into April 1st of this year, but we should have some communication we can send out in conjunction with ARMA. I just don't have an exact date on when we'd be able to do that at this point.
There's one here, John, for us, for the community continuing to provide services with circular, just make sure I understand this question correctly. For communities to continue to provide services with circular materials, will we negotiate directly with communities who are interested, or would communities need to reply to an RFQ or an RFP?
So I would say we'd have those. That's a good question. I think every community is a little bit unique in terms of how we would negotiate that and what makes sense for the communities. So I would just say, bring that up, send us an email on those, in the operations email, and we can set up a meeting to discuss that specifically. So yeah, I would think communities, as I said, there's 2 options on it, but we can set that up. So I know it's an anonymous attendee on that one, but we can set that up. Please send us an email. We're happy to go through those details. If you haven't met with us and we've got the communications, we'll go through those details as we kind of get to the next few stages of the transition here.
There's one other question that, John, that I'll read in a moment, but just for everyone's information, I'm typing a note into the chat for everyone to see that will have the link to the Circular Materials Municipal Working Group registration. And I'm also going to put the email address that we had up there, our generic email address that you can reach out to us for. So you didn't have to write those down as they came up earlier in the slides. You'll see that in the chat in a moment.
And I'll answer a couple now. I've got it up, so I'll touch on a few, and then if I miss any, Bob, please call it out. I saw Alana's note that we've got a bit of time. I had a feeling we'd have some good questions. What is included in the verification plan that we need to submit? Do we have to have contracts in place by April 1st for each community? No. So what we're looking to do, the verification plan, is just make sure that we've got the details. We're providing that feedback from communities of what we need to present as a plan. In terms of contracts, that will happen after that date. So once the verification plan has been submitted and approved, we will then have some follow-up discussions, and the contracts will take place after those dates over the next number of months. I do see another one. How do you work with stewards and arm's length bodies? So we have seen commissions and we've seen some other organizations that represent communities. We'll work with them if they have authority and they've registered through ARMA where they represent the community. We would then be able to have those discussions with those individual bodies or stewardship groups or commissions, and we would organize those contracts and those next steps based on the data that was submitted through ARMA. Can we join the working group before registering? Yes, I mean, we have passed that date, and I don't know if Ed or anybody at ARMA wanted to touch on the dates if you haven't registered. But yes, you absolutely can join. If you haven't registered, please feel free to register for the municipal working groups on it. And then obviously we can still have those conversations as we go if there's high-level conversations, but we'd encourage every community to register. And I think we've got a little bit of an extended timeline here. I know December 31st was the final, but I will put that back to ARMA if they want to touch on that question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If a community has not registered with Alberta Recycling by December 31st, they can continue. I've talked to our team. Communities can still register with us. It will potentially affect the time with which you get service, but absolutely you can still join and be a part of the program in the future.
I think there's another one here. How are you going to cooperate with other PPP pros in the market? Right now, we're the only one that is approved as a pro for PPP. Obviously, the future may change, so we'll coordinate as that happens, if there is changes there, and if there is additional ones that do sign up and do get approved. I can't speak to other pros. I would be an ARMA probably question beyond the three. That's more of an ARMA question. Oh, it is actually directed at ARMA, so I'll mention that for Ed. I don't know if you want to touch on that or if you want to hold that till the end.
That's fine. I can answer that. Absolutely. It's an open program. If pros wish to apply and register with Alberta Recycling for each one of these programs, they can do so. There is a due diligence period that goes through, but as it sits right now, we do have applications. But they are going through that process. So only those that go through that due diligence and meet the regulatory requirements can they actually operate in Alberta. And so right now, the three that have been approved are the three that you're speaking with today.
Okay. Jen just sent me a note about a glass education one. Oh, there it is. What education do you have with the different types? This can get tricky to collect. Thanks, Karina. We definitely will have some next conversations. Our P&E team from a marketing perspective will help with the education. So once we have an initial community meetings, our P&E team will specifically directly connect with you and ask some additional questions on specifically things like how to collect, how do we educate, what signage do we need? Those things obviously get specific by the community. But Jen, I don't know if you wanted to jump in on that as well from a P&E perspective.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Yeah, just what John said. We'll really want to collaborate with you. First, we'll determine how glass is being collected, and then we have strategies and tactics in place and information from other jurisdictions on what's impactful for residents and how we communicate that collection method through P&E.
Thanks, Jen. I think that's all I had. I don't know how our time is, Alana, but I think that's all I had. That's all the questions that I see. If there's anything else I missed, I'm happy to make sure that we capture it and respond accordingly. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.
John, there,
Yeah, that you guys were beautifully capped it at your 15. So we have about 10 minutes left, and we're continuing to just monitor the Q&A chat as well as capturing all of those questions. So just keep everyone, I encourage you to continue to pop in your questions. I will go to the first one from a general standpoint, and the ARMA team will pipe in and answer the questions. If a community has an existing service provider with an agreement in place beyond April 1, 2025, how will that be handled?
That's actually, like, I can forward or I can respond to this, but it's actually more of a pro kind of conversation. So existing agreements, I think when a municipality goes through its negotiations and its conversations with one of these three pros, that kind of information is going to be somewhat critical as you make your decisions on how you move forward with structuring your agreement with them. ARMA doesn't have a commercial requirement to understand how the contracts work between the pro and the municipality. We just have to make sure that the regulations being followed. Maybe I could throw that out to any one of the pros to respond to that one.
Thank you, Ed.
It's Manny here with Product Care. So with respect to that, from Product Care's perspective, we want to we're hoping to minimize the disruptions to the current system as much as possible. As I noted, that's why it's important for you to engage with service provider, to review your agreement, to have your service provider connect with us, and we can talk through some of those issues and challenges. Ideally, we would be able to insert into that process without too much disruption, and that's part of the discussions that we need to have. Thank you.
Thanks, Manny. I would just add, yeah, it's similar to us. I mean, we're going to work with the communities, work with the timelines. That information, as Manny just mentioned, for us is vital. Is when does that contract expire? What are the terms? The more we can understand that, the more we just can work with you and make sure that it is a smooth transition. There's some that have reached out to us already, and they're in an RFP stage or an RFQ stage. So then we can help kind of navigate that, whether it comes to timelines or verbiage. And the only thing I would add is the collection side, the hauler, the third party, they're aware. We know we're working with them as well. So they're aware of the timelines for the EPR launch in Alberta. So shouldn't be too big of an issue, but we'll work with communities as those situations arise.
Did our third pro want to respond to that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We reflect the same sentiments as well. It's very important that we discuss existing contracts as soon as we start our conversations. We absolutely will integrate with service providers where possible, but the sooner we have the conversations, the better.
Thank you, Jason. Next question. Do the pros have community information available to them? When can we expect to be contacted to negotiate a contract?
So I'll take that one and then throw it over to the pros. So absolutely, all the work that's been done to date with registration, our team's been working with communities all across Alberta to at least garner the basic information required to get to the pros so that they can start to build their validation programs. Nice. And also reach out to you. There's contact information. There is some vital pieces of information that the pros have full access to, those that are registered with the system. So that information has been transferred over to registered pros. So I think the second part of that question would probably be best to be answered by pros as to when a pro might reach out to a community to take next steps.
Yeah, I can quickly jump in from a PPP standpoint. So we've reached out to everybody that is registered and in the system that we've got access to that have registered prior to December 31st. I think there's a few that have come in a little bit later. So there may be a gap just over the last week or two, or a week or so from the holiday side. We should have that. If you haven't heard from us for whatever reason, obviously we've got our contact there, so please reach out. But everybody that has registered from a PPP perspective that we have contact info, we have reached out.
Thank you. Did any of the other pros want to respond, or did everyone get a chance to respond there? Just want to make sure. We're good.
Yeah, so
Next
for Call to Recycle, we have begun conversations as well. And feel free to reach out if you're eager to jump into conversation, but we will be reaching out to all registered communities.
Thank you, Jason.
Just a reminder, Alana, according to the regulation, the way it's written, if a community registers, they have to have some sort of producers are responsible to actually service or provide some form of service for those communities. So it's imperative that pros, at least pros on this call, understand that the onus is on them now with the information that we've collected from municipalities to make sure that that engagement happens in some way, shape, or form fairly soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. Next question. If a larger municipality has registered by December 31st, do the smaller municipalities, towns within that larger municipality need to register as well, or can they be included under our registration?
So municipalities, each municipality has to be registered in some way, shape, or format to be able to participate in the program. I think if you have a smaller community that has either delegated the authority to the larger community to be able to register them, I think that's plausible. If there's a community that's unsure of whether the larger community has registered or included them in the registration, I think it's probably prudent for that smaller community to reach out to our EPR team here so we can sort things out for you specifically.
Thank you. And we probably have time for just one more question. How will the pros work together to provide one depot for various materials? And this question is for all three pros to answer. So I'm not sure who wants to go first. Whoever's ready to go first.
I can just jump in and say, obviously, material-wise, that's part of the conversation with communities. I know that's come up a few times. The contracts and the process for us would be specific to the PPP materials. But obviously, I think Jason and Manny, feel free to touch on it. I mean, obviously, there's crossover, there's material side, and there's going to be some conversations that happen. But hopefully, in those communications, as we discover those challenges, those opportunities, we will work directly, but obviously there will be a lot of crossover across depending on the material side. And if it's depot or collection areas, there's a lot of stuff to uncover over the next number of months. But I know it's not a great answer, but I think that's the other one. It's individual contracts, but Manny or Jason, feel free to jump in on the other side.
No, thanks, John. I do echo your comments. Some of the products just, even in the current system, they're not necessarily fitted for co-collections and things like that, but where it makes sense, I think from an efficiency standpoint, for a synergy standpoint, the various programs will try to work together on that, but it obviously depends on a number of factors, and those will have yet to be detailed. Thanks.
Thanks, Manny.
And absolutely, Call to Recycle shares the same sentiment. Our collection methods do vary, but where possible in communities, where space is available, certainly we're always happy to use the same facilities.
Thank you. That brings us to our hour. Thank you everyone for participating and joining today. There were a lot of wonderful questions. For the questions that we did not get to or that the pros did not get to, rest assured that we have been capturing those. And either the pros will follow up as well, but we will be capturing the ARMA EPR team will be capturing these any new questions that we have been collecting today and updating ARMA's frequently asked questions list that you can access on the website. So with that said, have a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you again to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very much.